I had just finished packing for a week-long fishing trip with two of my closest buddies, guys I've known since elementary school. We've been like brothers all these years, and these trips were our way of keeping that bond alive. Sure, I was excited, but I couldn't shake a nagging feeling in the back of my mind. Normally, our trips included our wives, making the whole experience more lively and fun. This time, though, things felt off. Back when we were younger, we all dated around, even with each other's eventual wives, before settling down. It never caused tension, just part of our dynamic. Over time, the group solidified, and these trips became something we all looked forward to as couples. But this time, Ryan, one of my best friends, had to skip the first few days because of a big business meeting. His wife, Laura, decided to stay back and wait for him. Then, just 2 days before we were set to leave, Ethan, another one of the gang, got called into a Friday meeting and would have to head out early, so his wife stayed home too. When Lisa, my wife, heard that the other wives wouldn't be coming, she quickly decided not to go either. That hit me hard. This trip wasn't shaping up to be the kind of vacation we were used to. Usually, it was all of us together, laughing, joking, and having a great time. And, to be honest, one of the highlights for me was the intimacy Lisa and I shared before, during, and after these trips. For whatever reason, these trips always seemed to rekindle our passion, even if only briefly. I wasn't sure how much fun this trip would be without her, but at least we'd had a wild week leading up to it. Lisa had been unusually eager, borderline insistent, when it came to the bedroom recently. I enjoyed it, but something about her enthusiasm felt almost forced. I didn't give it much thought at the time, though. I figured it was her way of getting me excited for the trip or making up for lost time. Looking back, I realize how different things had become between us over the years. When we first got married, we couldn't keep our hands off each other. We'd sneak off to any quiet spot we could find. Over time, that passion cooled. About 5 years ago, things noticeably shifted. We went from being intimate almost daily to maybe a couple of times a week, and even that felt like an obligation on her part. I'd try to initiate, but she turned me down more often than not. At first, it hurt, and we had a few arguments, but eventually, I stopped pushing. When she wasn't interested, I'd deal with it on my own. That Thursday night, as I took a break from packing in my office, sipping a beer, Lisa came downstairs after putting the kids to bed. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat next to me on the couch, looking serious. Her expression, part fear, part determination, immediately set me on edge. "Michael," she started, her voice unusually soft, "I need to talk to you about something important. Please, before you say anything, promise me you'll let me finish. I'll answer all your questions, but I need to get this out." Her words sent a chill down my spine. I nodded hesitantly, bracing myself for whatever was coming. She took a deep breath, clutching her glass of wine like it was her lifeline. "Michael, I know you haven't been happy with things in our bedroom these past few years. Truthfully, I haven't been either." She paused, her eyes darting away from mine. "I love you. You're a great father, a reliable provider, and my best friend. But, Michael, I don't feel attracted to you anymore. Not in that way." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt my face flush with anger and confusion, but before I could respond, she held up her hand. "Please, just let me finish," she said firmly. Reluctantly, I swallowed my rage and stayed silent. "I've met someone else," she continued. "He's someone I've known for a while, and he makes me feel alive again, like I used to feel when we first got married. I've been seeing him, Michael, and I can't live like this anymore. I don't want to lie or sneak around anymore. I need to be with him." I bolted upright, my anger boiling over. "You're a cheater. How could you do this to me, to us?" I yelled. But before I could say more, she pushed me back down into my seat, her face hardening. "Shut up, Michael," she snapped. "I told you this wasn't going to be easy to hear, but you promised to listen. Now, sit down and listen." I sat there, stunned into silence as she continued. "I've already spoken to a lawyer about divorce. You can't afford to leave me, Michael. If you try, it'll ruin you financially, and the kids will suffer. So for their sake, and for your own good, you need to accept this. I still love and respect you, but I need more than you can give me. Nothing about our family life has to change. I'll still be here for you and the kids, but I will be spending nights with him. Occasionally, I'll take trips with him too. I felt like my world was crumbling around me. Who is he? I demanded. How long has this been going on? Lisa rolled her eyes, her voice turning cold. That's none of your business, Michael. If you try to find out, there will be consequences. I've made sure of that. You just need to accept this for the sake of our family. She was calm, almost detached, as she laid out her plan, and I sat there, paralyzed, trying to comprehend what she was saying. My wife, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, was standing before me like a stranger, her betrayal cutting deeper with every word. It was obvious Lisa had been planning this moment for a long time. Every word she spoke sounded rehearsed, like she had been waiting for this confrontation. I finally managed to speak. Well, I said stiffly, I guess I should call the guys and let them know I'm not going on this trip. We've got things to figure out. I reached for the phone, but Lisa's hand shot out and grabbed mine. Her eyes locked onto mine, cold and unyielding. No, Michael, she said firmly. You are going on this trip. The kids are going to your parents, as planned. I'm not staying here alone, and I don't want you lurking around trying to figure out who my lover is. You need this trip, not just for yourself, but to accept the way things are going to be. Her voice dropped, her tone steely. If you back out, you'll regret it. We have people watching, Michael. Informants. If you interfere with my plans or try to find out who he is, there will be consequences. If you cooperate, your life doesn't have to change, but if you push back, you'll lose everything. I stared at her, stunned into silence. She walked to the desk, pulled out a thick envelope, and handed it to me. Here, she said calmly. This is a report of your activities over the past month. Read it, and you'll see we know everything. If you try to ruin what I've built, I will destroy you. Before I could respond, she started upstairs. I'm going to bed now, she called over her shoulder. If you still want me tonight, come to bed. Nothing has to change unless you decide to make waves. She swayed her hips as she walked away, but for the first time, it didn't stir a single emotion in me. I just sat there, holding the envelope, feeling my world unravel. When I finally opened it, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The report detailed everything about my daily life. When I left the house, where I went, who I talked to, even things I didn't remember doing. It noted private details no one should have known. My car, my wallet. Were they bugged? The level of surveillance was terrifying. This wasn't just a casual affair. Lisa's lover had resources, money, connections, or both. Hours passed as I read, each page twisting the knife deeper. Finally, Lisa called down from the stairs. Michael, are you going to bed? Or are you just going to sit there sulking all night? Her tone was impatient, but I didn't answer. I couldn't. I stayed on the couch, too angry and stunned to move. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Lisa clattering around in the kitchen. When I walked in, she didn't even look up. You need to play your part, Michael, she said coldly. And just so we're clear, if you think about finding another woman, I'll divorce you. Her words lit a fire in me. What the hell, Lisa? You can cheat on me, bully me into accepting it, and now you're threatening me? Why is it okay for you, but not for me? Lisa finally turned, smirking like she was enjoying this. Oh, Michael, what I'm giving you now is more than enough for your needs. If you go looking for more, it'll only be out of spite. Besides, if you'd satisfied me, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. Her words hit like a slap. You never told me you were unhappy, I said, my voice rising. Not once did you say you needed more or wanted something different. How was I supposed to know? I thought I was doing everything right. Lisa shrugged, indifferent. If you have to ask, Michael, then you really are clueless. It's not about the quantity, it's the quality. And frankly, you've never been able to please me. I realized a long time ago that you probably never would. So I found someone who could. She waved a hand dismissively. Now go get dressed. I'm tired of this conversation. Breakfast was tense. Tyler, our son, picked up on the tension immediately. What's going on? He asked, his eyes darting between us. Before I could answer, Lisa cut in smoothly. Your dad's just a little stressed. He'll feel better after his trip. She gave me a pointed look, daring me to contradict her. At work, I decided I wasn't going on the trip after all. I called Kevin, one of the guys I was supposed to drive with, and told him something had come up. I even offered to let him use my SUV to haul the gear. Kevin wasn't having it. "No way, Michael," he said firmly. "Lisa already called me and said you might try to back out. She told me you've been overworked and need this trip. She even checked with your secretary to confirm you're free." My stomach churned. Lisa had thought of everything. "Kevin, I'm serious." "I can't go," I said, trying to find an excuse that wouldn't sound weak. "Michael," Kevin replied, his voice sharp, "you're going? I promised Lisa I'd make sure you didn't bail." For a moment, I froze. Was Kevin in on this? Could he be the lover? But then I remembered Lisa said she'd be gone this weekend while Kevin was supposed to be on the trip with me. Still, the doubt gnawed at me. "Fine," I muttered finally, defeated. "I'll go." As I sat at my desk, my mind raced in circles. Ryan wasn't joining the trip until midweek. Was it possible he was Lisa's lover? Or was it someone entirely unexpected? Damn, I felt trapped. I needed to think things through and come up with a plan. Maybe I should install a CCTV system at the house, but how could I do it without Lisa noticing? After reading that detailed report she handed me, I knew she and her friends were monitoring everything. Credit card purchases, phone calls, even cash withdrawals. Any unusual expense would immediately raise red flags. Just as I was lost in thought, my phone rang. It was Lisa. The moment I answered, she launched into an angry tirade. "Michael, I told you to go on this trip, and I warned you not to dig into my personal life. Kevin just called me and said you try to back out. This is your last warning. Do not contact me again while you're away, or you'll be nothing but trash, and you'll never see your kids again. Am I clear?" Before I could respond, she slammed the phone down, leaving me stunned. Again, Kevin had betrayed me, or at least that's how it felt. Was he involved with Lisa? Or was he genuinely trying to help me? My mind spiraled. Over the years, it felt like my friends had grown closer to Lisa than to me. They weren't just my friends anymore. They seemed more like her friends. Could this really be true? No, not all of them, but the thought lingered. With no other choice, I decided to go on the trip. I met the guys at Denny's for dinner. Everyone seemed to be having a good time, laughing and joking like usual, but I sat there, barely picking at my food. Finally, Ethan turned to me and asked, "Michael, what's going on? You've been moping all night." I hesitated, then muttered, "Lisa's got some crazy idea in her head, and I don't know how to deal with it. Honestly, it's hard to even believe what she's saying, but if it's true, my marriage is over." Kevin exchanged a look with Ethan and said, "Damn it, Ethan. You know how Lisa is. She called me this morning and said Michael's been stressed and trying to cancel the trip. She asked me to make sure he came. Said he's been difficult to live with and really needs this vacation to clear his head." Ethan nodded, chiming in, "Yeah, I've noticed. You haven't been yourself lately, Michael. You don't joke or hang out like you used to. Maybe this trip will help you loosen up. I've got some beer and your favorite whiskey in the car. Come on, man. We've never let anything stand in the way of our cabin trips before." He clapped me on the back, and I reluctantly followed them out the door. We headed to the stream where we'd be fishing, a short 2-hour drive. By the time we arrived, the guys had already cracked open drinks, and I let them talk me into having a nightcap before bed. The next morning, Ethan and Kevin were up early and eager to hit the water. Fishing was a welcome distraction. For a while, I forgot about Lisa and everything weighing on me. But by the time we returned to the cabin that evening, the thoughts came rushing back. I couldn't stop replaying Thursday night's conversation in my head, trying to make sense of it all. After dinner, the guys convinced me to have another drink with them. I caved, hoping it would help me relax. As we sat sipping our drinks, Ethan broke the silence. "Michael, you've been quiet all day. What's eating at you? You look like you lost your best friend, and I know that's not true because I'm still here." His attempt at humor fell flat, but I decided to open up. If I didn't talk to someone, I was going to lose my mind. These last few months, no, the last few years, everything's gone downhill. My marriage, my bed life, it's all falling apart. And then Thursday night, Lisa dropped a bomb on me. She said she's been seeing someone else and has no plans to stop. The cabin fell silent. Ethan's expression was a mix of shock and disbelief. Are you sure that's what she said, Michael? Damn it, I can't believe Lisa would even think something like that, let alone say it. We've known her for years. She's always been kind, loving, everything you could want in a wife. I know, I said, shaking my head. I can't believe it either, but that's exactly what she said, word for word. At least, as far as I remember. Ethan leaned back in his chair, exhaling heavily. Well, Michael, if that's really what she said, then you've got some hard decisions to make. I'm no expert on relationships, but breaking up the family could do a lot of damage to your kids. And let's be real, the courts almost always side with the mother. Unless you can prove she's unfit, you'd probably lose custody. She's also right about the financial side of things. You'll have to pay child support until they're adults, cover their medical expenses, and help with college. On top of that, you'll owe her alimony until she remarries. And since she doesn't work, it'll be a big chunk of your income. You'd either lose the house or have to sell it and split the money. And don't forget about your retirement account and savings. She'd get at least half of that, too. He paused, letting it sink in. So yeah, Lisa's mostly right. You'd end up broke. The court's goal is to make sure the kids are taken care of, which usually means the supporting parent, aka you, gets squeezed dry. It's brutal, but that's how it works. I sat there, stunned. Hearing Ethan lay it all out like that felt worse than hearing it from Lisa herself. It was one thing for her to throw threats at me. It was another to hear my friend, a lawyer, confirm that she wasn't bluffing. Everything she said was true. My world was falling apart, and there didn't seem to be a way out. I couldn't shake the gnawing need to know who Lisa was seeing. She refused to tell me, but I had to find out. The thought of her with someone else burned in my mind, and I couldn't let it go. When I find out who it is, I said to Ethan, I'll make sure they're out of her life for good. Ethan leaned back, his face serious. Michael, as your friend, I get where you're coming from, but as a lawyer, I have to warn you. Don't do anything rash. If something happens to her lover, I'm obligated to report it. My advice? Accept it and move on. Maybe if she cheats enough, she'll change her mind and come back to you. Either way, keeping the peace might be your best option. I stared at him in disbelief. Ethan, are you serious? If Emma pulled this on you, would you just roll over and accept it? Would you let her threaten you like Lisa's threatening me? Ethan shrugged. Honestly, I'd probably be just as mad as you are. But I know Emma wouldn't do something like that. She's head over heels for me. She knows I'm the best lover she'll ever find, and she wouldn't risk the life we've built. Lisa's got you in a tough spot, though. With that report she gave you, it sounds like she's got eyes everywhere. If you try to dig into her private life, she'll know, and she'll retaliate. Hell, she probably already knows about this conversation. His words hit me like a brick. You think she knows we're talking about this? Damn it, she knew exactly where I was going this weekend. I didn't even think about that. Ethan's cryptic smile and Kevin's smug expression unsettled me. They seemed almost amused by my misery, and it made my stomach churn. I couldn't figure out why they were so unaffected by Lisa's betrayal. Finally, I threw up my hands and said, to hell with it. Let's just have another drink. The next morning, I woke before the others and decided I needed some time alone. Grabbing my fishing gear, I headed upstream to my favorite spot, hoping the quiet would help me think. Just as I cast my line, my phone rang. I rarely got a signal this deep in the woods, so I was surprised to see Lisa's name on the screen. I hesitated, then let it go to voicemail. When her message came through, I played it back, expecting some new round of manipulation. Instead, her voice dripped with unsettling calm. Hi, honey. My sources tell me you got some good advice from Ethan last night. I hope you're going to take it to heart. I love you. You're too good a provider and father to lose. But if you do something crazy, I can let you go and still take care of the kids. Now, try to have some fun. My blood ran cold. How did she know about my conversation with Ethan? There was no cell service at the cabin, and we didn't have a landline. The only explanation was that she had bugged something. My phone, my gear, maybe even the cabin itself. My mind raced as I tried to figure out how to uncover her surveillance. What I didn't see were Ethan and Kevin lurking at the edge of the woods, watching me listen to the message. They exchanged grins and a thumbs up before slipping back toward the cabin. As they walked, Kevin leaned toward Ethan and whispered, "Think this'll be enough to keep him in line? Or should we keep the pressure up for a while longer?" Ethan chuckled. "Let's keep feeding him advice. We need to make sure he stays passive while we enjoy the perks. If we can convince him to let Lisa have her freedom, we'll all come out ahead. Imagine how much easier it'll be to spend time with her without the time constraints we've got now. She's so hooked on us, she'll do anything to keep getting what she wants." Kevin nodded, smirking. "We've got her so wound up, she's practically begging for more. If we play this right, we'll get what we want without Michael ever catching on. And if he starts whining to our wives, we can spin it like we're just helping him work through his issues. It's the perfect cover." Later that day, Lisa was preparing for the arrival of her friends at the cabin. She turned to the man beside her, her voice filled with excitement. "Oh God, I've needed this for so long. I can't wait for the others to get here. Ethan should be here early Wednesday, right?" The man grinned. "Yeah, baby. Then you'll have both of us for 2 full nights before you have to go babysit Michael." Lisa laughed. "I can't wait until all 3 of us can spend time together without sneaking around. Being with just 1 or 2 of you isn't enough anymore. After what you've done for me, Michael will never satisfy me again. But I still love him. He's a great provider, and he's an amazing father. I don't want to lose him." The man nodded. "Ethan, worry, babe. We've got it under control. As long as Michael doesn't start stirring things up with our wives, everything will be fine. Things have been working out perfectly for the last 3 years. Honestly, we were greedy to push for more. But now that you're willing, it's worth it. Still, we've got to make sure Michael doesn't blow this whole thing up." Lisa sighed. "I hope you're right. But sometimes, I wonder if we've awakened a monster." "Well, the mistakes we've highlighted and the evidence we've gathered should be enough to keep him in check," Ethan said. "But damn it, I just wish he wasn't so damn straightforward and principled. I can't believe we couldn't dig up anything insidious in his past. How does a man run his own business and not take advantage of a single opportunity to make some extra money? It's almost annoying." Lisa smirked. "Ethan, worry. I'm still keeping a close eye on the finances. I've managed to get the bank to set limits on his cash withdrawals, but I can't do much about the checks he writes. At least we can track those if he tries anything funny." She giggled. "You know, I used to regret insisting he hire office help so I could stay home with the kids, but now, if I hadn't stayed home, we wouldn't be having this much fun." Ethan grinned. "You've certainly made the most of it. No more waiting for a trip or a random evening to sneak in a little fun. It's a solid setup." Meanwhile, Michael was by the river, lost in thought. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong, not just with Lisa, but with the friends he trusted for years. Their attempts to cheer him up only made him feel more isolated. That evening, after drinking far too much, he passed out in a drunken stupor. Ethan and Kevin slipped out to the porch for a hushed conversation. Kevin lit a cigarette, his hands shaking slightly. "I'm starting to worry about Michael. We've been working on him for days, and if anything, he's more adamant about leaving Lisa and finding out who she's sleeping with. He's furious, Ethan. He's ready to blow. How are we going to control him if he snaps?" Ethan waved him off. "Calm down, Kevin. I've got it covered. Worst case scenario, Lisa divorces him, and we spin the story to make her look like a saint. Honestly, it might even be easier if she does. I like keeping him around. It adds a certain thrill to the whole arrangement, but if he becomes a liability, we'll cut him loose. Either way, we just need to make sure neither he nor our wives find out what's really going on." Kevin frowned. "And if he doesn't back off? What if he tells someone?" Ethan's expression darkened. "Then we'll handle it, one way or another. Let's hope it doesn't come to that." Unbeknownst to them, Michael had stirred awake and overheard fragments of their conversation. He couldn't make out everything, but it was enough to confirm his growing suspicions. His friends weren't on his side. They were more loyal to Lisa than to him, and possibly even involved in her betrayal. The thought made his blood boil, but he forced himself to stay quiet. He'd deal with this on his own, without their help. Over the next few days, Michael withdrew further from his friends, speaking only in clipped sentences. His anger simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over. Kevin and Ethan noticed his change in demeanor, but every time they tried to draw him out, all he'd say was, "I'm going to find out who Lisa's cheating on me with, and they're going to pay." When it was finally time to head home, the tension was unbearable. Kevin rode with Michael in stony silence, while Ryan followed in his car. As soon as Ryan got into an area with good cell service, he called Ethan. Ethan and Lisa were waiting in Michael's living room, and Lisa's hands shook as they listened to Ryan's report. "He's angrier than ever," Ryan said. "He's dead set on finding out who she's with, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's already making plans. My advice? Back off for a while. If he catches wind of anything, this could blow up in all our faces." Lisa's face went pale, and tears streamed down her cheeks. She looked shaken, almost panicked. Ethan clenched his jaw, his face turning red. When the call ended, he pulled Lisa into a comforting embrace. "Ethan, worry," he murmured. "We'll handle this. Let's see how the weekend plays out. If he's still a problem, we'll file a report Monday morning. I'll freeze his personal accounts, and with court approval, I can probably lock down his business accounts too. We'll convince the judge he's a financial risk." Ethan panicked. "We've got this under control." Late that Friday night, Michael walked into his house and immediately knew something was wrong. Lisa was sitting in the living room, wearing one of his shirts and nothing else. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying, but she looked strangely relaxed, almost smug. As he passed, he noticed clear evidence of recent intimacy on her body, and his fists clenched with rage. She wanted him to see, to react, but he wouldn't give her the satisfaction. "Michael," she called after him, following him into the bedroom. When he went into the shower, she tried to join him. He shoved her out and growled, "Get your used body away from me. I thought maybe we could work this out, but after what I've seen tonight, that's impossible. You may destroy me, but I swear, I'll get my revenge on you and whoever else is involved." After his shower, Michael quickly packed everything he could fit into his truck. Lisa watched from the doorway, her expression unreadable. He tried to access their joint accounts from the computer, but he was locked out. She'd changed the passwords. His anger flared, and when he turned, he saw her standing there, arms crossed. "I was hoping you'd come to your senses," she said softly, almost sadly. "But I guess it's come to this." Michael didn't answer. He stormed out, determined to find a way to turn the tables, no matter the cost. "You know you're making a big mistake, don't you?" Lisa's voice dripped with mock concern as she stood in the doorway. "I love you more than any man I've ever known. I don't want to lose you, Michael. But if you keep acting like this, you're going to destroy the business and everything we've worked so hard for." She crossed her arms, her tone sharpening. "Just so you know, I've hired Ethan as my lawyer. I already spoke to him and told him about your behavior. He'll be in touch soon." Michael's stomach dropped. Ethan, his best friend since college, his lawyer since the day he started his business, had sided with Lisa. How could he betray him like this? Without a word, Michael grabbed his keys and walked out of the house, driving straight to his office and warehouse complex. He decided then and there he'd live out of his office for the foreseeable future. He couldn't stay in the house, not after what he'd just heard. When he arrived at the complex, he stopped at the gate and spoke with the security guard. "I'm having some serious issues at home," he explained. "My wife and her lover are threatening me. I want extra security here, and I need you to make sure no unauthorized people get onto the property. Can you handle that?" The guard nodded, and Michael drove inside. The next morning, Saturday, Michael left the complex to grab breakfast. As he pulled up to the gate to leave, a man approached his truck. "Michael Thompson?" the man asked. When Michael nodded, the man handed him an envelope. "You've been served," he said before walking away. Michael tore open the envelope to find a restraining order inside. It prohibited him from coming within 100 meters of Lisa, their children, or their home. Worse, it included a court order freezing his personal and business accounts, restricting all expenses unless approved by the court. Lisa's legal team was already setting the stage for their divorce case, which was scheduled to be filed on Monday. After breakfast, Michael drove to his assistant Monica's house. When she answered the door, her eyes widened. "Michael," You look terrible. What's going on? I need to talk, he said, his voice cracking. You're the only person I can trust. I'm sorry to bother you on the weekend, but I don't know what else to do. Come in, she said, stepping aside. Would you like some coffee? As Michael entered the kitchen, he saw Monica's husband, Andrew, sitting at the table, mid-brunch. I'm sorry, Michael said, backing toward the door. I shouldn't have come. I'll leave. Andrew waved him back in. You're already here, Michael. Sit down. You look like hell. Talk to us. For the next hour, Michael unloaded everything. He told them about Lisa's betrayal, her threats, the restraining order, and the way his so-called best friends had spent the last 2 weeks convincing him to accept Lisa's affair. Ethan's supposed to be my friend, he said bitterly. Now he's her lawyer, and I'm completely cut off. I can't even pay for breakfast. My cards are frozen. I don't know what to do. Monica frowned. I can't believe Lisa would do this to you, she said softly. She turned to Andrew. Michael can stay in the spare room if he needs a place. Can we help him with some money too? Andrew nodded. Of course. But first, we need to make sure you're not bugged. Michael blinked in surprise. Bugged? Andrew narrowed his eyes. If everything you've said is true, it's possible they've planted a listening device on you. Come with me. He led Michael to the basement. Take off your clothes, Andrew said. There's a shower over there. I'll bring you some fresh clothes. In the meantime, I'll take yours to the front door in case they're being tracked. Feeling foolish but desperate, Michael complied. After he changed into Andrew's sweatpants and a t-shirt, the three of them gathered in a cement rain shelter under the stairs. For the next hour, they brainstormed and planned. Monica took notes while Andrew outlined the first steps, securing temporary funds, finding legal help, and gathering evidence of Lisa's activities. You'll need to stay out of sight for now, Andrew said. Monica and I will handle most of the legwork. Meanwhile, at Lisa's house, she, Ethan, Kevin, and Ryan were having a much different kind of meeting. After spending the afternoon indulging in their twisted games, they sat in the living room, laughing and sipping wine. Kevin looked uneasy. I'm worried about all of this, he said. What if Michael finds out what's really going on? What if he comes here and catches us? Maybe we should cool it for a while. Ethan shook his head. Relax, Kevin. We've spent years planning this. Michael's too focused on finding Lisa's lover to realize we're all involved. He's angry, sure, but he doesn't have the resources to fight back. As long as we keep the pressure on him, he'll cave eventually. Lisa frowned, swirling her wine. I don't know. He's been more stubborn than I expected. What if he doesn't give in? Ethan smirked. Then we take the next step. I've already got the restraining order in place, and on Monday, we'll tighten the financial leash even more. By the time I'm done, he won't have the means to fight back. Ryan nodded. Still, we need to be careful. Michael's not stupid, and if he figures out what's really happening, this could all blow up. Lisa sighed. I hope it doesn't come to that. I love Michael. He's a great father and provider, and I don't want to lose him. But sometimes, I think we've pushed him too far. What if we've created a monster? I'm starting to worry this will all blow up in our faces, Kevin muttered, pacing. Yesterday, Michael spent so much time with his secretary and her husband, and our guy didn't hear a single thing from inside the house. Then Andrew left, and they stayed behind to watch over Michael instead of tailing him. What if they're helping him? Stop whining, Ethan snapped, his tone impatient. We've got Michael tied up financially. He doesn't have the resources to fight back, and our surveillance is solid. We'll know if he so much as breathes wrong. Right now, he's crying into his coffee with his secretary and her husband. If he so much as steps out of the house, we'll know before he hits the end of the block. They carried on, laughing and indulging themselves without noticing the man outside their window with a camera and microphone trained in their direction. On Monday morning, Michael got to work finding a lawyer to represent him. Losing Ethan, his trusted attorney for years, left him scrambling. He contacted several firms and eventually settled on Rachel Dean, a highly recommended attorney who left a strong impression during their consultation. Rachel moved quickly. The first steps were to unfreeze Michael's business accounts and secure him enough funds to cover his living expenses. She also recommended hiring a private investigative team to monitor Lisa. Michael agreed, allowing wiretapping and video surveillance in his home. Rachel initiated divorce proceedings on the grounds of infidelity. Later that evening, Andrew handed Michael a USB drive containing footage from the prior day. Watching the video, Michael's worst fears were confirmed. Lisa wasn't just seeing one of his friends. She was involved with all three. Rage boiled in his chest, but this time it was directed with purpose. The next morning, Michael got to work. At his office, he made 5 copies of the footage. One went to each of his friends' wives, one to his lawyer, and he kept one for himself. The original was secured in a safe deposit box. He also uploaded the videos to several amateur adult websites, using the real names of everyone involved. To cover his tracks, he used Ethan's office computer to set up the site, ensuring any investigation would lead back to Ethan. Additionally, Lisa's family and friends received explicit photos of her via email. Michael sent them from free public computers at the local college, which didn't require logins and lacked security cameras. He knew from experience that no one would trace the activity back to him. By Wednesday, Michael's phone was ringing non-stop with calls from people who had seen the video. He ignored most of them, but when Lisa called, sobbing, he picked up. "How could you do this?" she cried. "I thought you loved me. I told you it was just lovemaking because you couldn't give me what I needed. How could you ruin my life like this?" Michael laughed bitterly. "Ruin your life? Melissa, you ruined your life the moment you decided to cheat. I'm just giving you the consequences you begged for." Ethan acted surprised. "You thought I'd sit back and let this happen?" She tried to respond, but he cut her off. "I should have seen the signs sooner. There were too many moments when things didn't add up. Well, it all makes sense now. And I promise you, by the time I'm done with you and your friends, you'll regret the day you ever betrayed me." Later that day, Michael's sister, Lisa, ironically named, called him. "Poor idiot," she said mockingly. "Looks like you finally found out about your perfect wife. So, you sent that video out? I gotta say, I had no idea she was hooking up with your friends, but now that I know, I think she and I can share them. You'll have to find someone else to pity you." Her laughter sent a chill through Michael as she hung up. He didn't trust his sister and felt an eerie sense of foreboding. Next, Ethan called, his voice exploding with fury. "You're a damn idiot, Michael," he roared. "You've ruined everything. By the time I'm done with you, you'll wish you'd never been born. Your wife? She's been mine since high school, and she'll be mine long after you're rotting in the gutter. You had your chance to keep your family, your money, and your life. But no, you had to mess with me. Now I'll bleed you dry in court, and when you're broke, I'll still be enjoying your strumpet. And if you think that's bad, wait until I send my boys after you." The venom in Ethan's words fueled Michael's determination. He let Ethan rant, silently recording every word to use later. Calls from Lisa's parents followed. Her mother, tearful, pleaded with Michael. "How could you do this to her? I know she hurt you, but spreading those pictures and videos was too much. Couldn't you have handled this more civilly?" By the time Michael wrapped up his day, he felt a grim satisfaction. He hadn't resolved everything, but he had delivered the first wave of retribution. Sitting back in his chair, he reflected on the long battle ahead and the toll it would take. But one thing was clear. He wouldn't go down without a fight. Michael sat at his desk, reflecting on the day he had set up the computerized answering system for his business. At the time, Ethan, then his trusted lawyer and friend, had recommended he contact his telecom carrier for a professional setup. Michael chose to invest in a system that recorded all incoming calls after issuing a clear warning. It turned out to be one of his smartest decisions. When the phone rang, the automated system would greet the caller. "Thank you for calling Central Inventory Logistics and Security. All calls are recorded for later use. If you do not wish to be recorded, please hang up now." The message then offered options to route the call. Whether out of ignorance or blind rage, Ethan ignored the warning, and all his threats and boasts were captured on record. The recordings proved invaluable during the chaos that followed. Ethan's legal threats, unethical behavior, and even his boasts about Lisa's betrayal were neatly preserved, ensuring Michael had irrefutable evidence. Unfortunately, Lisa's little group grew more cautious after Michael filed his cases. While Frank's friend had captured damning footage that first Saturday, None of the private investigators managed to record anything incriminating afterward. There were a few ambiguous phone calls, but nothing concrete. Rachel, Michael's new lawyer, wasted no time. She forwarded Ethan's recorded calls and behavior to the state bar, which swiftly suspended his license. By the end of the divorce proceedings, Ethan was permanently disbarred for gross misconduct, including threatening a client, engaging in a physical relationship with his client, Lisa, and multiple breaches of attorney-client privilege. Michael's divorce was finalized with an unexpectedly favorable outcome. Lisa walked away with only 25% of the family assets, while Michael retained control of his business. Full custody of the children was awarded to Michael after a shocking photograph came to light. One of Frank's friends' images inadvertently captured Michael's 8-year-old daughter watching the group's activities through the patio door. The judge, appalled by the harm done to the child, granted Michael sole custody. Ethan's troubles didn't end there. Michael sued him for breaching attorney-client privilege and won $1.3 million in damages. Ethan was also fined for his unethical behavior, leaving him nearly bankrupt. His wife, Emma, further drained his finances during their divorce, securing most of the remaining family assets. Ryan and Laura also divorced, with Laura walking away with the lion's share of their assets. Kevin and Samantha, surprisingly, did not initially separate. It turned out Samantha had been a willing participant in the group's debauchery. However, Kevin's tolerance wore thin when Ethan and Ryan monopolized Samantha after moving into his home. Feeling neglected and humiliated, Kevin snapped one night and attacked the pair. The ensuing fight landed Kevin in the hospital and Ethan and Ryan in prison for a year on assault charges. Following this, Kevin and Samantha finally divorced. Nearly a year after everything had settled, Michael sat in his office discussing a recent article about Ethan, Ryan, and Kevin's fallout over Samantha with Monica. She looked at him thoughtfully and asked, "Do you ever talk to Melissa anymore? I know she can visit the kids under supervision." Michael shook his head. "No, only when absolutely necessary, and only about the kids. If I had my way, I'd never see or hear from her again." Monica hesitated, then said, "I'm just curious. For years, you two seemed like the perfect couple. I always wondered, did you ever figure out why she did it? Why would someone who claimed to love her husband destroy everything?" Michael's jaw tightened as he reached into the bottom drawer of his desk and pulled out a folder. He slid it across the table. "I don't know why I kept this letter," he said, "or why I agreed to read it. About 7 months ago, Lisa's mother came to my office in tears. She handed me this and begged me to read it before she left. I did." Monica opened the folder and began reading. The letter, written in Lisa's familiar handwriting, started, "My dear Michael, I know you probably think I've lost the right to call you my dearest, but you are still the only man I've ever truly loved. I didn't mean to hurt you. I never intended to cheat on you either, but I did, and I regret it deeply. I know you knew about the times I made love with Ethan, Ryan, and Kevin when we were all dating in high school. Back then, it never seemed to bother any of us. You made love to all 3 of the girls too. It was just how we were. The first time I cheated after we were married, it was almost familiar. It was on our 9th anniversary, Valentine's Day. You were stuck working on a major theft case and couldn't come to the party at Ethan and Emma's house. I felt so lonely that night, and I drank too much. I know that's not an excuse, but it's what happened. Emma made Ethan drive me home, with Ryan following in another car so he could take Ethan back afterward. On the way, Ethan started reminiscing about the time he and Ryan made love to me together in high school. I don't know why, but it got me excited. By the time we got to the house, I was aroused and vulnerable. They insisted on helping me inside and putting me to bed. As they undressed me, Ethan and Ryan kept joking about that night. I tried to get them to stop at first, but they didn't listen. Or maybe I didn't want them to. That night, we made love for almost an hour. I hated myself for it, but I couldn't deny how intense it was. I had more climaxes than I ever had with you, and I knew it was because there were 2 of them. They never let me relax. I told myself it would never happen again, but it did. A few days later, Ethan and Kevin came over while you were out of town again. They begged to come inside, and I gave in. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't resist how good it felt. That night, we ended up in bed again. Since then, it's been at least once a month. sometimes more. If all three of them could sneak away, I'd be with all of them at once. Looking back, I realize you probably noticed how some of the boys and I would disappear during those weekends and holidays we all spent together. We would sneak off and make love, always afraid of getting caught. I think part of the thrill was the danger, but over time, it stopped being enough. We started talking about how we wished we didn't have to rush or hide. It was Ethan who came up with the idea to convince you to let me cheat. He explained how the divorce would go if you didn't agree, and I believed him. I thought you loved me enough to let me do it. I also thought you wouldn't risk losing your children or your livelihood. So, I agreed to his plan. Michael, I am so sorry for what I've done to you and our family. I was weak. I became addicted to the incredible pleasure these men gave me, but it wasn't worth losing you. Please, if you can find it in your heart, forgive me for being so selfish. Yours forever, Lisa. When Monica finished reading, she set the letter down with a heavy sigh. Her eyes were watery, but her jaw was tight with anger. Michael, I think she really does love you. But she was weak, and Ethan, he's the real predator here. I've heard rumors about him for years. The way Lisa described that first night, it sounds like he got her drunk on purpose, knowing what he wanted to do. No true friend would ever take advantage of her like that. Michael nodded, his expression grim. I've thought about that too, Gertie. But the truth is, I don't think Lisa's telling me the full story. She always seemed more attentive to Ethan than I liked. I shrugged it off for years, but there were times after parties where we'd fight because I thought she was too close to him. I never called her or Ethan out on it. It would have caused a huge argument. He paused, running a hand through his hair. After I caught them, thanks to you and Frank, I had enough doubts to do something I never thought I'd have to do. I did a DNA test on the kids. You can't imagine the relief I felt when it confirmed I was their father. Monica gasped. You really thought? I didn't know what to think, Michael admitted. Lisa might think she loves me, but it's not the kind of love that keeps a marriage together. I think it was more about comfort. I was a good provider, a good father. Maybe I was just the easiest option for her when she didn't know what else to do. I loved her with all my heart, but now, I don't think she ever truly felt the same way. He leaned back in his chair, his voice tinged with resignation. She was selfish, Gertie. It was always about her needs, her desires. That's why she cheated, why she kept doing it. I've moved on. Now, I just need to find someone who knows how to love the right way. Monica nodded slowly, her expression filled with sympathy. You deserve that, Michael. You really do.